Here we go. It's baked off. The moment of truth. Plate on top. What's the worst that can happen? Hi, my name's Gary. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do my absolute favourite autumnal pudding. It's one of those things that I wait for apples to come into season, and it's the simplest dish, but it's one of the most absolute tastiest dishes, and for me it kind of summarises autumn all in one plate. It's elegant, it's simple. Today we're going to make an apple Tarte Tatin. And every great dish has a great story, and this apple Tarte Tatin was created in France by the Tatin sisters, and this legendary dessert was created by accident in the Tatin Hotel in the 1880s in France. Either Stephanie Tatin, who worked in the kitchen, either forgot to put the pastry into the container before she put the apples, or she either over caramelized the apples first and chucked the pastry on after, baked it off and turned it out, creating the legendary French dessert apple Tarte Tatin. Went on to feature in Paris restaurants and restaurants throughout France. Why? Because it's bloody delicious. It's my favourite dessert. We're going to cook it today, and I've researched other YouTube videos, and there's one missing thing because I worked in France and we made apple Tarte Tatin. In France they pack the apples in, and every video I've seen on YouTube is not using enough apples. So today we're going to use double the amount of apples of any video I've seen on YouTube, and we're going to make it boozy. We're going to make it adult. We're going to chuck in brandy and cider to that caramel to get that apple flavour in there and give it a nice boozy finish. So here we go, let's cook apple Tarte Tatin. Okay, so these apples I picked here are just a little bit too small for me, so I have got myself some nice big Golden Delicious. I've got 12 of these Golden Delicious. I'm going to try and squeeze all 12 apples into this one container here. Is that possible? Gonna have to stick around and find out. Now, I am using a metal pie dish instead of a china dish like this, purely because we want that caramel to be nice and strong on the finish, caramelise the apples as it's cooking, so a metal dish is going to transfer the heat as you're cooking it. Just bought this dish, it's given me a lifetime guarantee saying it's non-stick. Will it be non-stick with a Tarte Tatin packed full of caramel? Let's find out. Okay, first up we're going to peel the apples and get those into a bowl ready to caramelise off. So first job, peeling the apples. In the original recipe the skin was left on, but it's definitely nicer like this. And now all 12 apples are peeled. Next mission, can we get them into this dish to make a super deep apple Tarte Tatin? Let's find out. And in this video I'm going to show you two super ways to charge your apple flavour in your apple Tarte Tatin without ruining the simplicity. First, apple cider. Second, this. Okay, so what differentiates this from other apple Tarte Tatins you might see on YouTube? And what are we doing to build the flavour? So most Tarte Tatins you're going to see on YouTube make the caramel out of water and sugar. Us, instead of water, let's take something that tastes of apples, adds apples, and gives a little boozy kick. And as well as the cider, apple calvados. If you can see what we're doing here, we're just adding a layer of apple, another layer of apple on top of the apples to give you a real appley flavour, a real deep set apple flavour. Next, cardamom pods. Cardamom really boosts the flavour of apple, so if you're going to cook anything with apple, a single cardamom pod in there just helps elevate that apple flavour. Haven't seen this on YouTube either? Vanilla pods or vanilla seeds. Going into the caramel and that vanilla flavour makes any baked good taste good, but those vanilla seeds are just going to coat the apple in the caramel as they cook in, and that flavour is going to penetrate into the apple. And of course, finishing the caramel butter. Classic, the Tatin sisters use butter and sugar to make the caramel. We're going to use sugar and cider just to get a nice controlled caramel, but we're going to finish it with salted butter. A little element of salt in the butter is just enough to bring your tongue to life when you're eating the dessert. Doesn't make it too salty, but just helps counteract that sweetness. Okay, so let's dive into the caramel. So our sugar's going into a heavy base pan. Let's turn the gas on low to start warming through that sugar. Open up the cider. And I'm using a little bit more cider than you would water, purely because cider's got its own sugar content, and then move it around ready for it to start simmering. And of course, as always, all the apple peelings will go into compost outside, making good soil to do good gardening next year. Now rather than stirring, it's going to give it a little swirl to move it around. And now it's just a waiting game. As the temperature goes over 100, you'll see that the bubbles start becoming more of a consistent bubble. And now the cardamom pod is going in to flavour the sugar. Smoke alarm is not happy with this one. So the caramel I've turned off, it's going to cook a little bit more in its residual heat, so it's going to go a tiny bit darker, but if it starts going too dark, you can carefully add your apples and that's going to cool the caramel down really fast. So if you're scared it's going too dark, remember caramel can pull your skin off if it touches it, so it's bloody hot, so be careful. Arm's length, welding gear, you know the drill. So now that's come to a nice dark amber colour. Like I said, I want a nice dark caramel. Apples want to have that like contrast between the bitterness and the sweetness. I'm going to put the apples in now with the vanilla and the butter. Okay, nice and carefully, like I said, you don't want the sugar to splash you at this point. Gently put the apples into the caramel. Got a couple of jumpers here, chuck those back in. And the vanilla seeds, end of the pot, time to go shopping. Vanilla seeds will go in there as well. It's going to really give a nice flavour. Tiny splash of that Calvados, not too much. And now we're going to start carefully moving those apples around in the hot caramel to start cooking the apples through to give them a head start for when they go in a Tarte Tatin. Now add your salted butter, mix that in and allow it to simmer. Smells so good in this kitchen. Apples, sugar, vanilla. Now taking the apples off the heat, ready to put into the pan. I'm having a minor panic attack that the apples are going to stick, so I'm using a little bit of extra virgin olive oil here just to grease the pan. And of course olive oil can be delicious when it's added to desserts. It's a nice fruity oil. Now I'm going to carefully arrange the caramelized apples in the dish. Hot. My finger and the apple have become one. Be careful touching this hot caramel, about 150 degrees. Carefully arrange those apples in the dish. It smells like the kitchens in northern France already. Now, all joking aside, I've got these apples in here well easy. I've seen loads of videos where they're going, oh, should have put more apples in. This is exactly the reason why you should put more apples in. You can get them in there and they're going to cook down and crush together as they cook. So if you're going to make an apple Tarte Tatin, you see loads of books with like a single layer of apple going around. Let's get all those beautiful apples, those tasty apples, and cram it in there. Right, beautiful. That is in, and that looks delicious. So the bottom layer of apples is your presentation. You're going to turn it over, so that's what you're going to see. So as long as your bottom layer looks nice, the second layer can just get crushed in there. Spoon on some more of that delicious caramel sauce. To help caramelize the apples in the oven. Okay, now for the puff pastry. I made the puff pastry yesterday, my rough puff, recipe below. I rolled it out. If you want to see me rolling it out, I'll put it in the intro maybe. Saves a bit of time. So you want about like a couple of millimeters thick, and that's just going to go onto your table. And then we're just going to get a plate the same size as the top of the tatin, a little bit bigger, and then cut a circle around that like this. Okay, perfect. That's going to go on the puff pastry. It's a little bit bigger than a tart. Just going to take a nice non-sharp knife to score around it so I don't damage the worktop. Remember, the puff pastry should be nice and cold when you do this. Fridge cold. With puff pastry, if you've got any trimmings, store them flat like this, fold them over. It will keep the layers and you can use it again. Perfect for another Tarte Tatin. Double the amount of apples. That's double the amount of apples I've seen in any other video. Everyone's like 6 apples. This is 12 apples into a small single 6-inch dish. And now this puff pastry, the cold puff pastry, is going to get lowered on top of the Tarte Tatin, and we want to push that down to get all those apples locked in there. The side wants to get pushed in like this. And now using a small pointy knife, just prick loads of holes in the top of that pastry, and that's going to allow the steam to escape as it's cooking. Now I'm going to put a tray at the bottom of the oven, just in case any of that caramel releases. Turn it down, 180. And then in goes the Tarte Tatin. 30 minutes, 180. Tray underneath it, just to catch any dripping caramel. Right, now that's cooking, we need something to serve it with. Now, apple Tarte Tatin is perfect with vanilla ice cream. You've got the vanilla in there. I'm a big believer of matching flavours, so if there's vanilla in there, vanilla ice cream goes with it. If there's Calvados in there, Calvados creme fraiche. I had the apple Tarte Tatin in Paris in a free Michelin star restaurant. It was simply cooked, a Calvados creme fraiche on top, so that's what we're going to do today. To make that, Super easy. Calvados from your supermarket. Got mine half price. We are just going to open up the Calvados. Mixing bowl. Take a mixing bowl. We're going to put 4 big spoons of creme fraiche. And to that, we are going to add 2 boozy tablespoon-ish of Calvados, which, if you didn't know, was apple brandy, which works perfectly for this. And now gently mix that. It's going to become a little bit runnier than it was in the first place, but it's going to go back in the fridge to set up a little bit. And now this is a dessert, so we're going to add a tablespoon, a heaped tablespoon of ice and sugar, which has been sieved so there's no lumps, and then stir that in too, and then pop that back into the fridge. And now the timer has just gone off for half an hour for the Tarte Tatin. Let's check it out. Smells incredible. Pastry's crispy. You can see all the apples have swelled up. They're going to relax as they cool down. Put that out. We're going to leave that to cool for about 20 minutes to half an hour. I'm just helping push those apples down a little bit. Be careful because there's any hot liquid in there. Okay, here we go. It's baked off. The moment of truth. Plate on top. Here we go. What's the worst that can happen? Oh, no, 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 no. That was a little bit hot and nearly slipped through my fingers. Okay, let's give it a shake. Try and release it from the tin. There we go. I felt it move. A good luck sandcastle type tap on top. And drum roll, moment of truth. You've seen it before me. What a beauty! And it's one of those joys. Looking at a tatin for the first time, it's like watching a Yorkshire pudding rise. What a beauty. I am a happy man. That's exactly how we did it in France. Now, for that caramel we left earlier, I'm just going to glaze that on top to give it a nice shine. And what we're looking for is that perfect shiny finish to the tatin. And I always serve up a jug of this caramel sauce with the tatin to guests. And now that's the way I remember it in France. Look at that. It's beautiful. Apples crammed onto the top. Oh, the smell of sweet autumn apples, caramel, vanilla, little touch of spice of the cardamom, Calvados, cider, all those apple flavours marrying together, soaking into the apples as it cooks. That is a French apple tart tatin. Let's give it a try, the best bit. So one of the reasons you want to let it cool down for half an hour, you want that pastry to crisp up nicely, which is just perfect. After about 20 minutes, the apples are still warm, the pastry is crispy, and look at that slice as it comes out of there. That is just a thing of shiny beauty. Nice big spoon of that. And there is no need to be posh with presentation here. Simply get your tasty boozy creme fraiche on your tart. Here we go. The moment of truth. Super simple, 3 ingredients. Apples, pastry. Well, a few more ingredients. Apples, pastry, butter, sugar, brandy. But simple, you know. Just easy to make. Apples, caramel sauce, pastry on top in the oven. And then top this delicious Calvados creme fraiche, which has got its own sort of sharpness, a little bit of sweetness from the ice and sugar, and that boozy punch from the Calvados. This is why I'm so excited. This is why this is my favourite dessert. And I haven't had it like this for like 15 years, man. I mean, I'd imagine that's what ecstasy feels like. Shivers down the spine. Whole body tingling. Oh, man. That is delicious right there. That's autumn on a spoon. I'm so happy. Oh. The only problem, I've got to stop myself eating the rest. Save it for the family. Oh. Hope you don't mind. I hope you don't mind. Can't even speak. I hope you don't mind watching me in paradise. Oh, it's so good. Make it. Make it. Well, while I eat this, and you like desserts and you love desserts, check out this dessert next. This is my second favourite pudding, baked egg custard tart. Perfect for this time of year. Spices, nutmeg. See you in the next video. Enjoy while I enjoy this.